I have the procedure now. Canto 4, Chapter 11. The heading of the chapter is Dhruva Maharaj's fight with the Yakshas. And the chapter begins Could you put that cell phone down? Thanks. Just don't put the thing up. Thanks. Going back to Canto 3, about Chapter 3, Canto 3, it begins a long section where Maitreya is speaking to Vidura. It's nice to get contact. It's not so critical, but Maitreya has he's gone beyond being an elevated rishi to a perfected soul, a Mahabhagavata personality, and largely due to his having heard directly from Krishna, along with Uddhava, when Krishna spoke to Uddhava. The Uddhava Gita, Maitreya was there, Maitreya heard, and actually it's the second time, yeah. And Maitreya was told just before Krishna departed the world, Maitreya was told that very soon Vidura will come and he will receive transcendental knowledge from you, like an instruction. And sure enough, Vidura came. Vidura came after spending time with Uddhava, then he came to Maitreya, presented many, many inquiries, and Maitreya is obliging the two elevated souls having discussion on elevated topics. So Maitreya is speaking to Uddhava, Maitreya is speaking to Vidura at the beginning of the chapter, and Maitreya is explaining, after hearing from the great sages, Dhruva knew what to do. So apparently, when Dhruva went charging off to Alakapuri to confront the Yakshas, he didn't travel alone. He didn't travel only with his army. There were some ministers or brahmanas and some very elevated personalities that reminded him of his, it was understood from Lord Vishnu himself that Dhruva would live a long life. He would rule the kingdom of his father, and he would attain Dhruvaloka, the spiritual abode where Lord Vishnu resides. So you're good. And just don't forget Vishnu. Please remember Vishnu. And you have an instrument where you can check the yakshas and their mystic powers. It's a weapon, astra, of Narayana. So just with that gentle reminder, Dhruva regained his composure. He fixed the Narayana astra to his bow, and as soon as he drew his bow back, the apparition disappeared. All of that mystic display that we heard yesterday, previous chapter, poof, just disappeared. And with that Narayana astra and other weapons, he began smashing the entire army of the Yakshas. And some of the Yakshas were terrified. Some of the Yakshas were dead. Some of the Yakshas engaged in even more vigorous battle, and Dhruva was better at battle than they were. And they're heavenly-like beings, they're celestial-like beings that are very skilled in warfare. That's what one of the things that's known about the Yakshas. They're really good in military skills. But Dhruva was better. And as he was going on and on and on and on, killing many, many, many of the Yakshas, his father's father, Swayambhuva Manu, came, his grandfather came. So Dhruva's father, Uttanapada. Uttanapada's father, Swayambhuva Manu. So Swayambhuva Manu, the emperor of the universe, came to intercede. And he spoke transcendental knowledge, naturally, because he's one of the 12 Mahajans. So it's worth becoming clear what, supposing, close your eyes and imagine being a Mahajan. Or don't do that, just imagine you're who you are. And you have a situation where you see that somebody is being carried away by anger. And you know that they know with proper reminders it's not proper. So what would you do to help them understand they should not be carried away by anger? So the teachings are important, and it's something that we can say to ourselves if we find ourselves carried away by anger. Now, it's not always, but it's possible for elevated souls that transcendental knowledge is sufficient to overcome being carried away by the material energy, even something as powerful as anger, because anger can be very destructive. So I thought it would be nice to hear some of the things that he said. Of course, this morning's verse is one of them. My dear son, please stop. He said more than that. It is not good to become unnecessarily angry. It is the path to hellish life. Now you are going beyond the limit by killing yakshas who are not actually offenders. We discussed this yesterday. It is the duty of a king. It is the duty of a king to check offenders. And if the king doesn't check offenders and commensurate with the offense, then the king is also implicated in the offense. Others don't have that same duty or karmic responsibility, but kings do, heads of state do. When there's wrongdoing, commensurate action is to be taken. And we know from Bhagavad Gita, there's 6 kinds of aggressors, and their death penalty is appropriate. Not only appropriate, it's to be done. Because otherwise the king or the person that's taking responsibility has to be implicated. And when the king becomes implicated, then the rest of the population becomes implicated. So the king has to know what is dharma and follow dharma. So Swayambhuva Manu is the giver of dharma. That's what Manu does. One of the main things that Manu does is he gives laws for mankind. Manu Samhita, laws for mankind. So he's reminding him. The killing of sinless yakshas, which you have undertaken, is not at all approved by authorities, and it does not befit our family. That's a strong argument for people that understand the obligation to one's forefathers. And it doesn't mean much to modern people. It's an argument that Krishna used with Arjuna. Our family is supposed to know the laws of religion in your religion. Then he goes on. The strength of your action is you have affection for your stepbrother. And you want to take proper steps. Okay, take proper steps, but this is beyond the proper steps. Then he speaks, second chapter Bhagavad Gita kind of message. You're not the body. The body is made up of this and that, and the soul is different than this and that. You're not the body. And living in bodily conception is inconsistent with the life of devotion. So give up the bodily conception. It is very difficult to achieve the spiritual abode of Hari in the Vaikuntha planets, but you are so fortunate that you're already destined to go to that abode by worshiping him as the supreme abode of all living entities. So act consistent with teachings, act consistent with our lineage, act consistent with what your destination is already. Align yourself with the right compasses, please. Because you are a pure devotee of the Lord is always thinking of you. And you are also recognized by all his confidential devotees. Your life is meant for exemplary behavior. I am therefore surprised. Why have you undertaken such an abominable task? I mean, he already indicated because of affection for his brother or stepbrother. And so he's in the get back. Undue attachment pushes to the side our sense of what is proper conduct, what is appropriate in each circumstance. When there's undue attachment, then you can't think straight. And when you can't think straight, then you don't speak straight and you don't act straight. So where the mind goes is very important. And he's like realigning his everything and his mind to the personality of Godhead in service to him in pure devotion. Okay. And then there's lots of nice philosophy that covers many topics, Sambandha Gyan topics primarily. And he winds up the chapter by saying, the Yakshas are very dear to Kuvera. They're servants of Kuvera. And by doing this, you've offended Kuvera because he's their protector. And you should immediately go to Kuvera and stop what you're doing and go to Kuvera and seek his forgiveness. Because otherwise you're going to get a big reaction. And I don't want that. You're my grandson. You're Dhruva. You're destined for the spiritual realm. So with that, Dhruva stops and doesn't say what happens with the Yakshas, but apparently when Dhruva stops, they stop. And he departs. Swayambhuva departs. And that's the end of the chapter. So the verse that we're discussing is text 13, yes? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Tatikshaya Karunasya Karunaya Maitri Chakida Jantushu Samatmena Cha Sarvatma Bhagavan Samprasidati Titikshaya karunaya maitriya chakira jantusho samatvena cha sarvatma Bhagavan samprasidati. No, it's, do you do word for word? Yes. Okay. Titikshaya, by tolerance. Karunaya, by mercy. Maitriya, by friendship. Cha, also. Akila, universal. Jantosho, unto the living entities. Samatvena, by equilibrium. Cha, also. Sarva Atma, the super soul. Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Samprasidati, becomes very satisfied. Translation: the Lord is very satisfied with his devotees when the devotee greets other people with tolerance, mercy, friendship, and equality. Purport: it is the duty of an advanced devotee in the second stage of devotional perfection to act in accordance with this verse. So now we're all paying attention because that's what we're supposed to become, second stage devotees, Madhyama. There are three stages of devotional life. In the lowest stage, a devotee is simply concerned with the deity in the temple and he worships the Lord with great devotion according to rules and regulations. In the second stage, the devotee is cognizant of his relationship with the Lord, his relationship with fellow devotees, his relationship with persons who are innocent, and his relationship with persons who are envious. Sometimes devotees are ill-treated by envious persons. It is advised that an advanced devotee should be tolerant. He should show complete mercy to persons who are ignorant or innocent. A preacher-devotee is meant to show mercy to innocent persons whom he can elevate to devotional service. Everyone, by constitutional position, is an eternal servant of God. Therefore, a devotee's business is to awaken everyone's Krishna consciousness, that is his mercy. As for a devotee's treatment of other devotees who are his equals, he should maintain friendship with them. His general view should be to see every living entity as part of the Supreme Lord. Different living entities appear in different forms of dress, but according to the instruction of the Bhagavad Gita, a learned person sees all living entities equally. Such treatment by the devotee is very much appreciated by the Supreme Lord. It is said, therefore, that a saintly person is always tolerant and merciful. He is a friend to everyone, never an enemy to anyone, and he is peaceful. Are you feeling peaceful? These are some of the good qualities of a devotee. I really like how Prabhupada has taken these characteristics and moved it from the position of the Uttama Bhakta that Dhruva is. He's at the topmost stage. He's being identified as a pure devotee in this same chapter by Swayambhuva Manu. And expertly Prabhupada, because these characteristics of the topmost devotee have their exhibition in the second stage of devotion before the topmost devotee. And there are multiple places in the Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita as well, where these stages of beginning, intermediate, and advanced, or Kanishta, Madhyama, Uttama, are identified. And what Prabhupada has done here is he's moved it to the position of a preacher. Us, the Madhyamas have had this injunction to preach to innocent. It's just, we're very kindly, by the bhakti process and the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, were introduced very quickly to the Madhyama stage. Although we may not be so qualified to be Madhyamas yet, we're encouraged and elevated to that status. And then comes the instruction. We've all heard this comparison, the stairway method and the elevator method. You get in the elevator and you go to the top floor. So when you go to the top floor, what's your behavior like? So we're engaged in devotional service, but our behavior is not necessarily, certainly not Uttama, and maybe not yet Madhyama. So we need nice instructions. Just this morning, I was listening to Prabhupada speaking in Buffalo, 1969, and there was a question that somebody said. Basically, their thing was, as with the lower species of life, automatically elevation takes place. Is it not so also that one will automatically or naturally become elevated to the spiritual world? Won't we one day go back to Godhead? The question is asked sometimes the other way around. Yeah, are living entities sure of going back to Godhead? Well, everyone. Is it possible to stay in the material world forever? Say it that way. Or is it not that we're all destined at some point in time to go back to Godhead? The answer is no. And Prabhupada gave different explanations. But the teachings are needed, because not just when we're beginning devotional service, we need instructions how to be a good Madhyama. In general, the lower life forms may progress by evolutionary process up to the human form, but then the human form with elevated consciousness, then there's a greater responsibility. And with greater responsibility, greater facility, greater responsibility, there's instruction needed. So instruction, Prabhupada is taking this instruction to an Uttama and making it relevant to us for Madhyamas. And these characteristics, these 4 characteristics of a Madhyama: worshiping the Supreme Lord. Then, how to regard other living entities. Those that are more advanced, those that are peers, those that are less advanced, and those that are antagonistic. So there's different behaviors. But even with those that are antagonistic, and those that aren't even humans, Samatvena, Pandita, Samadarshana. And that pervades for us, for Madhyamas, it pervades our the guidance that we have. So how you maintain Samatvena, or equal-mindedness, when there's somebody that's aggressive? Because that question kind of came up yesterday. And it's right here in the purport. When one becomes a preacher, there's some people that are going to be envious. It's just how things work. Again and again, Prabhupada would refer to what Christ did. What did he do wrong? Or Haridas Thakur, what did he do wrong? But there were, envious people that did bad things. And that's going to happen in our lives too. And it doesn't necessarily, the bad thing that happens doesn't have to come from from envious people. It can be conditioned living entities, even people that are proximate to us or family members or in society that we move around in, and they don't have an understanding, and for different motives, for self-preservation or for whatever, they may do something, say something. So how do you remain samatvena when that happens? It goes back to what's being said here in the other verses. See a spirit soul. When you see a spirit soul, it doesn't mean you can't see the behavior. It doesn't mean you're not supposed to see the behavior and see it in light of scripture. You can see it in light of scripture. But the behavior is not the person. So if to the degree that one can continue to see spirit soul, let's just use the classic term Brahmabhuta, then it's prasanatma. It's a sign or a characteristic. There's a happiness within. When there's a happiness within, where's that happiness from within coming from? It's in the conclusion, the Lord is very pleased. Some prasidati. Some of you like Srimad Bhagavatam. I like Srimad Bhagavatam. And if you remember Canto 1, Chapter 2, that suprasidati word appears a few times. Yenatmas suprasidati or samprasidati, where that's speaking of the devotee feels happiness. Su prasana, very happy. Prasana, su prasana. And prasanatma, within the soul, within yourself, feeling very satisfied. This is taking the same term and helping us understand if we feel that happiness, it's resting upon the Supreme Lord's feeling happiness. Because bhakti is a relationship. And how can one feel happiness if the Lord's not feeling happiness? And if the Lord sees characteristics of a nice devotee, he feels happiness. And when he feels happiness, the devotee feels happiness. That is, the essence of happiness is a relationship with the Supreme. And searching for happiness outside of that is common. And it's part of conditioning. According to the modes of nature, one seeks happiness according to the modes of nature. But they all miss the mark. It's not suprasidati, it's something else. It's a shadow reflection of what real happiness is. Not too long ago, I was visiting at University of Illinois in Chicago, UIC. And Harisham was organizing the event, and wow. The topic he wanted me to speak about is something to do with happiness. He worded it nicely. But what is real happiness, or the standard of happiness, or something like that? If you look at material happiness, and according to the modes, it looks like this, or it looks like that, or it looks like the other thing. For some people, happiness is hurting somebody. That's mode of ignorance, happiness. And like Magari the hunter, he found happiness in half killing the animals. He felt good about it. Anyway, happiness in passion, happiness in goodness. And then transcendental. So this is transcendental suprasidati is transcendental happiness, that because of our relationship with the Supreme, when he sees qualities in his devotees that are very nice, that are pleasing to him, he feels happiness. Okay. How do you get qualities? Supposing you don't have them. It's not like going to a store and buying some clothes or shoes or some sabji, vegetables or something. It's not, where's the market for qualities? Now that's not what's in the purport, but it's a topic I like. So it goes like this. The other qualities besides the primary quality of spiritual qualities is Krishna Eka Sharana. Really easy. Krishna Eka means alone. Sharana means surrendered. Krishna Eka Sharana. And from that Krishna Eka Sharana quality, the other good qualities come. There's commonly a list of 26. So the other 25, they're called marginal, and they're resting upon the primary. Sarup, Lakshana is primary, and Tatastha. So then there's Tatastha character. Supposing, because the topic here is anger, and supposing somebody has a quality of anger, or somebody that has the quality of anger, what to do? Because that's not a good quality. How do you replace that quality with a good one? Tolerance. That's what's the substitute, at least preliminary substitute. You tolerate. But how do you get that nice quality? How do you get any good quality? And the answer, a very simple answer. Krishna has a big warehouse. He has a good quality warehouse. And when he sees somebody is a nice devotee, that they're fully surrendered to him, he likes to decorate them with nice qualities. And then when they come before him with nice qualities, Krishna smiles. And when Krishna smiles, the devotee smiles. Krishna feels happy seeing his devotee decorated with qualities that Krishna got from his warehouse. Good quality warehouse. He's got lots of good quality in that warehouse of his. He can easily decorate. But he wants to decorate with good qualities those that have that connection with him. That's primary. So then this is the Bhakti Principle. The Bhakti Principle is Anukul Yena Krishna Anushilanam. Krishna should be pleased. Anukul Krishna Anushilanam. Accept that which is pleasing to Krishna. That's the Bhakti Principle. And one who has accepted the Bhakti Principle, Krishna likes to decorate such a person with other good qualities. So we're hearing quickly these other good qualities. Tatikshaya, that's a starting point. Tolerance. Tatiksha. Tongues tatiksha swabharata. There's dualities, this and that. When this duality, that duality, both sides, the pleasant and unpleasant. You don't invest in the pleasant because that you just bought into the unpleasant side too. Honor and dishonor, pleasure and pain, etc. You stay tatiksha, you tolerate the features of duality so that the mind can go to Krishna. So that the mind can go to Krishna. Savaimana Krishna Padara Bindayo. Ambarish Maharaj. So that the mind can go to Krishna, when features of duality come along, you tolerate them. Not only the envious, also the praise. You smile. If there's anything good that you see in me, it's there because of my spiritual master, and behind him, the disciplic succession. So if there's some praise, it just goes right there. The praise goes to those persons, not to me. and there's some dishonor, it's just part of the territory of duality, and you smile because it has nothing to do with the soul. So, tatikshaya, karunaya, mercy. It's a quality of Krishna, and Krishna wants us to be merciful, of course, with discrimination or appropriate for the circumstance. We should be merciful. Karunaya. And maitriya, friendship. So this is merciful to the second-class devotee, merciful to the innocent, friendship with the peers or the others who are practitioners of bhakti, knowing that the practitioners of bhakti, like us, have shortcomings, and there's pluses and minuses with everyone, including myself. And so we don't get stuck on the minuses, but we make friendship and help the person, encourage their strengths and encourage them to, in ways that it's appropriate to help them deal with the shortcomings. And continue with this sarvatma, samatvena, seeing with equal vision, seeing as spirit soul. And then there's two terms, sarvatma and Bhagavan. Sarvatma, super soul, the soul of all souls. Sarva Atma, the soul of all souls. Paramatma, Bhagavan. Samprasidati. Samprasidati. That's what we want. That's what Bhakta Dhruva wants. Dhruva wants that Krishna will be pleased, so he's being reminded. These qualities that are natural for you, they kind of slipped away because you got too much attached to affection for your stepbrother. It's understood, you have affection, but it's too much. And it transgresses Dharma. So please check yourself. Connect again with the higher nature that is yours, and stop, desist. And the conclusion is you have to make amends with Kuvera, because offending the yakshas is offense to Kuvera. You have to correct that. So that's where the chapter ends. And we ran out of time yesterday with questions, so let's start with questions now and see what happens. You do.
Thank you for the wonderful explanation.
Thank you for being here, all of you. Nice.
I was wondering about friendship with devotees, because with a senior, a guru, we disclose entirely, complete confidentiality.
Shri Shri Radha Nilamadava Ki Jai. No, try it again.
Okay. So with a guru, we disclose our heart completely. We have complete confidentiality. But with friends, I'm wondering, what does confidentiality look like? Should we, as opposed to with our guru?
Amongst peers. Well, it really helps to have intelligence. And intelligence function is discrimination. You discern one thing from another thing. So according to the person and the relationship with the person, both, then disclosure is, commensurate with the relationship and, the qualification of the peer. It's you remove the disclosure of in confidence part and say respect. So we respect peers, although they're peers, we respect them, and it's commensurate with their position. And a position has different, criterion of position, but your regard for them. So there's commensurate respect with peers, and there's commensurate disclosure of confidentiality with. And there's other common sense, intelligent, directed things. You may know, for example, that you say something and in 3 minutes they're saying it to somebody else. So you respect them, but you may not do the disclosure part. Or you may disclose things that you don't mind if they repeat to someone else because they're going to repeat to someone else. So it requires some discrimination, some intelligence to discern, person by person. It's good, or maybe better than good. It's very valuable to have a peer that is one who you feel you can disclose anything and everything, because the peer may be more in contact with you, and thus the peer, although they're a peer, they may see things and understand things about you that a senior person may not see and understand. They may see your blind spots because of close interaction. So it's good, more than good, really helpful to have someone who's a peer who you have that same kind of disclosure capacity, acknowledging that they have the capacity to maintain confidentiality. And confidentiality may mean that if they're going to say something about what you discussed with them, they seek your permission first, and then you can say yes or no. But a peer person you have that kind of relationship with, it's really good. Okay. Anything else?
I can ask one more if that's okay, Maharaj.
There's silence here.
In the purport, Prabhupada describes the Kanishta Adhikari as one who worships the deity in the temple.
Yes.
And doesn't recognize other devotees. But I don't see this happening so much in, maybe my perception is misguided, but in devotees, especially from the West, because we don't have much of a relationship or understanding of the deity. So I was wondering how this description of the Kanishta Madhyama fits in with Westerners who don't really have a relationship with the deity from the beginning.
Well, step back from the deity topic and put it in a broader context where there's the church, there's the mosque, there's the place of worship. And when you go into the church or the mosque or the place of worship, you're reverential because God's there. And when you step outside the church or the mosque or the temple, you're not in God's place anymore. So you can say things, eat things, do things where it just isn't the same reverential mood. It's, sacred place. Leave the deity topic to the side and say, the vidhis of being reverential, whatever that tradition might be. So with deity worship, there's vidhis, what things that you don't do and so forth, because you're before God. So recognizing God outside of this presence within all living beings, and then you go to that place. So that's the idea. And for Western people, that's your question. It doesn't specifically mean necessarily the deity, but you could say, here we are, we're seated in the temple room, and there's certain kind of things we're not going to, a well-behaved devotee isn't going to say and do. we leave our shoes at the door, and there's behaviors of speech and social interaction, et cetera, that we observe because we're in the temple. And so many Western people may go to, let's just say 26 Second Avenue. There's no deity, but it's a sacred place. Or something like that. So when we get together in a place where it's spiritual activity that goes on, that's the deity, so to speak. And then we observe the rules and regulations because we're doing something sacred. It's the boundary is then how do I have proper regard for others who are also coming to that place of worship, and even those that aren't coming to the place of worship, and then those that aren't even human beings, how to have regard for the other living entities in proportionate to their position. That's the Majjhima. That's the distinction in simple language. Yes.
Krishna Maharaj. So why is a devotee's aware of his anarthas and shortcomings? And sometimes materialistic persons are also aware of their shortcomings. But a materialistic person will become very depressed, whereas a devotee will be happy and ecstatic.
That's a good devotee, to be happy and ecstatic, even I've got shortcomings. Congratulations.
Well, I'm just thinking,
Go ahead.
there's the example of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's bhajans, where he's talking about, in a very kind of intense way, he's talking about how fallen he is.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, he's a purified devotee.
Yes.
So I guess I'm wondering, what's the difference? Why is a devotee, even though he sees himself as fallen, he's happy, whereas a materialistic person sees their problems and shortcomings, and they'll just like become depressed and morose?
Let me try to be clear what your question is. You threw in the Bhaktivinoda Thakur or other elevated Vaishnavas that see themselves in lowly terms, self-deprecating terms. But leaving that to the side, your question is somebody that gets depressed, and somebody because they have bad qualities, and somebody that feels joyful, although they have bad qualities. And you want to understand, why is this differentiation going on? That's your question?
I think that's, well, can I say it one more time?
Yeah, say it what you want, because I can talk anything, but I want to be responsive.
Okay. So I guess I could speak in my own terms. Like sometimes I feel very conscious of my anarthas. But when I'm in the association of devotees and I'm taking advantage of my Guru Maharaj's association, I feel, even though that's there, that things are okay. But when I'm not in that devotee association, I'm not taking advantage of my Guru Maharaj's association.
Okay.
I see the same things, but they're like very depressing, and I just get really into it, and I don't like take shelter of Krishna so much. I'm sort of just like dwelling on the depression or something.
Okay.
I guess I'm wondering what the difference is.
Your conditioned soul.
Okay.
Welcome to the club.
Okay, thanks.
There can be different factors. It's probably not always like you described, but if generally it's like what you described. When spiritual connection is strong in the Madhyama stage, when spiritual connection is strong, we feel confidence that those shortcomings will be addressed in due course. And we're not focusing on the shortcomings or the anarthas. We're focusing on the bhakti process and being with others in devotional expressions of one kind or another. The bhakti principle lifts. And that when you connect with the bhakti principle, there's a confidence, not a blindness, but a confidence that those shortcomings, they fade and their weight upon me. And when I'm not in that uplifting bhakti spirit, they weigh on me. Here's a little saying that I've developed. We're not the International Society for Behavior Modification Incorporated. We're the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And when Krishna consciousness is there, the behavior modification and the shortcoming overcoming takes place. So when I'm connected, I'm confident, I can see, you can see shortcomings that you didn't see before you became a devotee. You didn't even know that stuff was there, just covered. And now becoming a devotee, you can see stuff that's there because of being a devotee. And now how do you manage that? So let me stay connected to the bhakti process. When that's elevated, those shortcomings take their place. They recede. When the light comes on, darkness is dispelled. And when that bhakti principle is not so strong, they become more, they occupy your awareness more because bhakti has become not so strong. Now, for that, it's another topic, very, very elevated souls. How do they see?
Yeah, I figured that was another different topic.
Yeah, it is a different topic. But back to your topic, that's the reason when bhakti becomes weak, weakened, less diminished in some way or another, then those things weigh on you more. And then what do you, so the next question is, what do you do when you feel those things weighing on you? Or what not to do? What not to do is become obsessive about it. We're not, International Society for Anartha Nivritti Consciousness. We're International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So you turn your attention with confidence in the bhakti process, and the bhakti process will give me the strength and clarity and everything to gradually address these shortcomings. But when bhakti is weak, you don't go there, you go to the shortcomings and get burdened by them, weighted down by them, consumed by them. The lower modes kick in instead of the elevation of the bhakti process. So what to do if that space starts to creep in? You go into reflective, you go to the mode of goodness. You become reflective. What's going on here? Mode of goodness. Through the lens of Bhagavad Gita, what's going on? This is the mode of ignorance. I'm not going to submit to the mode of ignorance. I'm putting my foot down. Then where are you going to go? I'm going to go over here. Go to knowledge and go to striving to connect with Krishna. Now, what are some of the things that help me connect with Krishna? Not like take that dirt and tuck it under the rug, but the best way to address with that shortcoming is the bhakti process. What gives me bhakti life? Let me do that. I'm still mindful of that thing that's over there that needs addressing, but I'm going to take strength from the bhakti life principle, exercise that, now in a position of strength, not a position of weakness. And then I can address this shortcoming better because bhakti is stronger, intelligence is stronger, spiritual strength is there, and I can address it properly. It's not overwhelming me because that's the mode of ignorance. So you first you go to the mode of goodness place, reflection. And then remember Krishna and what the teachings that you've been well prepared with. And out of those teachings, what are some of my options? What are some of the positions of strength that I derive? And you do that. You do it regularly. And especially when those times come. Or you reach out to a friend. That's it. That's what this last part is specifically in Manashiksha by Raghunath Das Goswami. The merciful Vaishnavas, and you reach out to them. And it can be, the previous acharyas and their writings. You reach out, you have your favorite ones, and you connect with them, and you feel that mercy lifting you. It gives reassurance instead of staying down there. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, over here.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. So actually I had two questions, but okay. One of my questions is, so Dhruva Maharaj, he had undue attachment or excessive.
He had what?
He had undue affection or like too much
Yes. Yes.
attachment to his brother.
Yes.
And I was wondering, how should we, like, how much attachment
How much is enough and how much is too much?
Yeah, and like how should we like view other people so we have like the proper, because it's like natural to have affection and
Oh, yes.
attachment, but how should we view them so that it's like the right way?
Excellent question. The answer has everything to do with you, and that is, what by that I mean, how strong, how evolved are you in your spiritual trajectory? Let's think of Prabhupada for a moment. And he had very strong feelings, spontaneous spiritual feelings for devotees. He cared very much for the devotees, his disciples. And his caring had a lot to do with their caring for him. Now then there's us, and we're not evolved like Prabhupada was spiritually. So what's appropriate and what's too much has everything to do with our spiritual evolution. The barometer is remembering Krishna. And when it crosses the line where our affection is blocking our remembrance of Krishna and our affection for Krishna, that's too much. Now, how are we going to control that? Because affection is affection, and we have some attachment, and the attachment goes, and so it's a bhakti principle that you want to stay fixed in that remembrance of Krishna. Yena tena pakarena mana Krishne naveshayet. That's all of what I do should be for that end, remembering Krishna. So you or I or any one of us may have to move the dial, even with a particular situation of attachment, according to this remembrance of Krishna principle. We don't dial it to 0, and we don't dial it to 10. So what's appropriate for us is the strength of our staying fixed in seeing a situation with another individual in terms of maintaining our attachment for Krishna and pleasing Krishna. I mean, you can think of that principle in terms of whatever it is that, examples that you're contemplating, or as you go along forward in time, that's a principle to apply. And you don't compromise, try not to compromise the focus on trying to please Krishna, because that's how you can think of Krishna, as trying to please him. What's going to be pleasing to Krishna in this circumstance with this person that I have some attachment for? What's going to be pleasing to Krishna? And that's like, that's our life. There's constant refinement and adjustment, but it's, staying fixed on pleasing Krishna. That's our bhakti life. Easy to say, and to do it is another thing, but that's the principle.
Okay. I did have one small other question. Yeah, I had another question. I was just so one of the qualities of the devotees is that they're peaceful. But like in the Gita, it says that, okay, not disturbed by like heat, cold, happiness, distress. And however, like we see devotees, they have all the range of emotions.
They have which?
They have all the range of emotions. They become happy and sad and angry and not angry, and that seems like peaceful, at least to me. Usually I think of like you're like emotionally stable. And
Yeah.
so I was wondering what it means by devotee is peaceful.
I like the principle that when your connection with this Swarup Lakshana is in place, the Tatastha Lakshana is in place. Krishna Ekasharna, when that's in place, that's what peaceful means. And anything else is not what peaceful means. It's temporal and circumstantial. My peacefulness is fine for some number of moments or some period of time, and then poof, it's gone. That's not peaceful. That's the standard. Then there's lesser degrees than the standard. The lesser degrees can be that, this thing of tolerance. When something disturbing comes along, I recognize it, but I tolerate it. And I'm not necessarily peaceful, but I tolerate it. And that helps me, stay on track. So there's gradations, but the real standard of peacefulness is Krishna is everything. It's right in Bhagavad Gita 6th chapter, when that stage comes, even the greatest turbulence, one remains undisturbed. Okay, I'm looking at the clock and the bell is ringing. So we're going to end. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.